everyone, and welcome to another episode of Mutual Connections. My name is Shayan Mashatian, your host, and I am delighted to introduce our guest, Noam Schwartz, the CEO and co-founder of ActiveFence. To give you a bit of background, ActiveFence is a pioneering technology company that empowers companies, enterprises to adopt AI securely and safely. ActiveFence helps to protect their platforms from risks like disinformation, hate speech, and other online threats. In 2021, ActiveFence emerged from stealth with an impressive $100 million in fundraising, valuing the company at over $500 million. It was a clear sign of its leadership in the trust and safety space. Before ActiveFence, Noam co-founded Multa, an innovative platform that allowed users to raise funds for charitable causes using videos. And later, he founded TopDog, a competitive intelligence tool that was acquired by SimilarWeb. Noam brings over 15 years of expertise in security and data science to his work. Welcome to the show, Noam.
Thank you, Shayan. That was very extensive. Never heard that long history list about myself. Appreciate
it. Was just from your LinkedIn and the incredible journey you have had. Noam, when I was looking at it, and just the fact that in 2021 you came out of stealth and raised that impressive amount of fundraising, I guess you make every entrepreneur very much jealous. But it tells us that you have been working on AI and all these topics way before the hype of ChatGPT and LLMs and everyone become aware of wide applications of AI. So I would like to ask you a bit about what was the work you were doing prior to that on those companies and how it led to forming ActiveFence, and tell us a bit of a story, what happened behind the scene.
Cool. So, that moment that everybody started talking about AI happened when OpenAI introduced a chat interface to their then GPT version 2.5, I believe that was the version. But there was a lot of work before that. That's when it became, when my parents learned about AI, when my parents learned about how you can use this tool, and when everything that we're seeing today really exploded. But we started the company in 2018, and I've been working on tools that leverage machine learning and other technologies way before that. And ActiveFence since day one was about how can we make tools that are automatic, that are help to detect harmful content, harmful behavior, things that disrupt the expected online experiences of our customers using machine learning or using AI today. But that was what we did from day one. And our vision was to protect online experiences at scale. And we did that with better model, with better training data, with better performance for our models. And we're still doing it today. We started with protecting user-generated content experiences, which we still do to this day. So think about social networks, think about gaming platforms, think about dating apps, think about everywhere that you're encountering content that was generated by users that is unpredictable. And there are some sort of guidelines for behavior and regulations for what kind of experience you want to create. We help the creators of those applications to make sure that everything is according to how they designed that. So you don't want violence, you don't want sexual abuse, you don't want harmful content, harmful behavior that is based on what the creator wants. So if you have a dating app, you decide what are the rules there. Nobody else. If you have a social media app, you decide what's in, what's out. Nobody else. There's a lot of criticism these days about the concept of trust and safety and freedom of speech versus freedom of reach. We believe that the creator of the service, the app, is entitled to decide what do they want to have on their app. And if you want to have really bad stuff, I'm against it. You can do it. You won't work with me. But if you want to stop bullying, if you want to stop fraud, if you want to stop sexual abuse, human trafficking, which is unbelievably a massive thing in the online industry, you would work with technology like ActiveFence. And when ChatGPT became a thing and a lot of enterprises realized that they can use this technology in order to increase productivity, to improve the experience of their users, that they can replace bots like intercom experience, very predetermined, rule-based, with AI, all of a sudden they realize that they have a new issue at their hand because they don't know what the model would actually spit out. And there's a new attack vector because you can try to hack a model through free speech, through free text, using plain English. So they need a layer of protection called guardrails. And that's exactly what we're providing. And this is how we became who we are today. We started with user-generated content, still working with AI, to the extent of the greater market need.
Fascinating. When you hear about AI and enterprise, everyone thinks about malwares, ransom, all those aspects, but you are focused on content. I guess it comes from your experience with Multa, right? Because it was about creating videos by users. Did that company really informed to identify the problem? What was the link between your personal experience with those that lead to this specific problem?
I think that company was more of, let's say, the brainchild of a different time. Web 3.0, mobile, social location. It was a different world today to do what we did then. You just need to go to one of the new apps like Lovable, and with a click of a button, you have the same thing. You just need to bring a lot of users. But I did experience a lot of work with user-generated content, with communities that you never know what they're going to produce next. And we had like a few crises that we dealt with. But that was my hands-on experience as a founder of a UGC platform, what can go wrong and how specific the needs of this industry are. And also, in my past, I used to do trust and safety for Nokia. So their app store, their OV app store, they have a lot of apps in different versions, in many languages, in tons of topics and policies. And that was back in 2008, 2009. And everything eventually connected. That experience, the experience with Multa, the experience with like other companies, it kind of like led me to understand that this problem is massive, and we need to figure out a solution. But again, that was nothing, because if you're looking at the amount of content that is being produced by users today, which is most of the content that is being produced online, when you're thinking about how much content will be produced by AI, it's really dwarfing that amount to almost to be insignificant if you think 5-10 years in the future. So if you believe that most of the online interaction that we'll have will be with the next versions of models, and we'll even have that in the offline world, really like try to imagine having a wearable like the Meta Ray-Ban that is helping you to communicate with the external world, that is augmenting your experience, and you're constantly seeing the output of models, that you're hearing amplified reality. What will happen then? And that's exactly the issue that we're trying to solve. How a bad actor would try to harm a person that is dependent on a model. Whether it's
So
like
the
for the
scale is, okay, I never thought about it this way, because for Web 1, we had only companies put content out there. Web 2 brought from bloggers, it started, then YouTube, others, but it was really people who were hands-on creating content. It's still a small portion of the whole population if you consider. But
yeah,
now you say, I guess correct me if I'm wrong, but we have three dimensions happening now. One is everyone is creating content, no matter who they are, with just simply putting a smart glass on. We have the LLM models came to the market, which adds another dimension of it. With all their pre-training, there are a lot of conversations, the bias in these LLMs or how they have been configured and what are the rules. And the third aspect of it is, you mentioned Lovable, all these movement of AI agents building. And we know maybe another group of those power users like bloggers, now they can move and build all sort of apps. In my Twitter feed every day someone says, oh, I spent 5 minutes built this, built that. And I start wondering what these agents really produce, what is behind the scene, how algorithms are done, do they manipulate it or not, and how we verify those, right? And it is really out of the scope of someone like me and an end user to do all those due diligence. Let me ask you, let's start with LLMs for now. Again, I would like to cover all these aspects as much as possible, but let us start with LLMs. When we talk about LLMs, there is a lot of warning about AI safety and security rights. We know there are a lot of good use cases by intention, like healthcare, and there could be some bad actors try to leverage these tools for harm or bad intent use cases. But even for the good intention, for like healthcare, it can make mistakes. It can give you bad information or bias or all that. Can you a bit explain, do you separate those content creation the way I describe, or you have a different way of thinking about it and categorize it?
I think there's, when you're thinking about the concept of AI safety, security, privacy, and you're thinking about them per industry, it's kind of like you started with LLMs, okay? But there's LLMs, there's the AI studios, there are the enterprises that are using those tools. You have startups that are providing, let's say, a vertical solution for the industry, horizontal solution. You have companies that are enhancing capabilities of LLMs, for example, giving them voice capabilities or giving them a visual representation, or they're giving them access to the internet, or they're helping them with training data. It's very complicated, but we're still using the terms safety for everything. And this is just in the consumer enterprise internet. I'm not even talking about things like trains and designing of medications and weaponry. So the word safety isn't deep enough to cover everything. And in my world, which is the enterprise software world, not about public health, not about weapons, not about these things, I'm thinking about the world in a matrix of the foundation models, the underlying technology, whether if it's open source or closed source, doesn't really matter. The AI studios, which are eventually the companies that allow people build agents on top of them or build applications on top of them. Today, everything is an agent. We'll see what will be the word when the listener will listen to this. But today, March 17th, 2025, the word is an agent. And there are the enterprises that are using that. And safety for each and every one of them is something very different. And you can bundle, let's call it abuse, privacy, security, compliance, accuracy, but effectively when people thinking about safety, it depends from which position they are at. Let's talk about, you started with LLM. What is safety? Safety can be, hey, I don't want my model to produce instructions to build a bomb. Or I don't want my model to produce instructions to hack for the water system of New York City. Or I don't want my model to allow someone to notify, a kid. I don't want my model to allow me to find a way to hack into my neighbor's webcam. There's a lot of things here, okay? Another aspect is I don't want my model to make mistakes and recommend the wrong medication. Or I don't want my model to make mistake and eventually provide personal data of someone that it's not supposed to provide personal data to a stranger. I don't want it to provide the password. There's a lot of things. And when LLMs are thinking about that, they're thinking about how they can make sure that the people that are using their models are using it as intended. That there is some sort of alignment between what they intended to do, what was the plan, to what is actually happening. This is, for example, not necessarily how enterprises would look at safety. Enterprises would look at safety as, I don't want to lose money, so I need to make sure that the model isn't giving a bad deal and it's hallucinated, or that it's not offering a product that they don't have in stock, or that it's not being very rude to an annoying consumer and it creates a problem from a brand perspective. And for an AI studio, think about Bedrock or ServiceNow or Salesforce. They don't want models, they don't want agents that are intended to harm other organizations to be built and executed on their servers. So safety means different things for different people. We can also talk about, I didn't even mention security, because you can also try and prompt hack a model, convince it to forget their system prompt, or convince it to forget its guardrails, or try to penetrate it in other ways. There's so many different aspects. But the most important thing here is that right now we're in this very unique point in time that people are using the same terms to describe different things, and sometimes it's creates a lot of confusion. So when people are talking about AI safety regulation, they don't mean what I just described. They mean different things. They talk about what can go wrong at scale, or what would happen if we deploy AI and all of a sudden a lot of positions would be, nobody will be able to fill them, and we'll have like a larger unemployment rate. And what will happen if we'll give control to AI systems over navigation systems, and we'll have unexpected events, and so on and so forth. So there's a lot of noise right now around that term, AI safety.
You just expanded the scope of problems that need to be solved beyond comprehension, Noam.
Yeah.
Okay, what do you do? So you are picking only, and it makes sense because you have to pick one of these segments. You cannot be a solution to everything. So you pick the enterprise, content creation for the enterprise. So you, for instance, Salesforce, the CEO of Salesforce, Mark, keeps talking about is agentic age. Can they use your solution to make sure when I go there and build an agent? So can you share a bit, how does it work? Is it your solution is a layer between these agents and all the foundation model behind it to do check and balances? How does it work?
Yeah, so our solution is very straightforward. When you're creating, we call it a digital experience, an agent, an AI app, doesn't really matter. But for example, if you're building over Agentforce, an app that's supposed to replace your banker, or supposed to give an online representation of a storefront or healthcare, it doesn't really matter. You want your consumer to communicate with a model, voice, text, doesn't matter, based on your organizational data that you're getting from, you're talking about Salesforce, so from Salesforce, and there's a lot of folks that are building their experiences over Salesforce. We can be a layer that makes sure that consumers won't try, or they can try but won't succeed in hacking, in manipulating the model to do something that you don't want it to do, from retrieving personal information to do an unwanted behavior, an unwanted action, or to produce content that you don't want it to produce. And we would also provide the guardrails to make sure that if there was a mistake, that content would not be shown to the user based on your specific guidelines. Now, when companies are building let's say AI studios, agent studios, they have a lot of things to take care of, and guardrails is a world of its own. Think about a medical app that is using guardrails, and you need to talk about organs. You need to talk about genitals. And sometimes you need to send like a photo that may be flagged as inappropriate. If you're using a model with guardrails, you'll get pushback. You'll get pushback about, hey, this image is not appropriate, or you can't talk about those things, or this is against our sexual language. So actually, your guardrails will be too much, even though you didn't intend them to be. On the other way around, you have there's ways to break a model to make it behave in a very toxic way. You also don't want your brand to behave this way. And the whole concept here is that unlike an intercom-like experience, and I'm using intercom just because a lot of people knows that, but just like a bot with an if this then that behavior, which is deterministic, nothing can happen outside of the predefined answers. With models, you can say exactly the same thing for a model, but get very different answer, just because the way the technology works.
So this
So you need
guardrail on its own is an LLM model that you build. How these guardrails can be flexible enough to be adopted for all these different use cases? Are they
so
on their own an LLM or no?
yeah, yeah.
So it is a safe, secure LLM that cannot be jailbreak. I guess you do a lot of red teaming to make sure you test them extensively, and then it becomes a gatekeeper between agents and studios.
Like everything theoretically can be broken. Our model is not accessible to the consumer because we're wrapping an existing model. So if someone will try to manipulate us through manipulation of the app that we're protecting, which it's like double jeopardy, theoretically it's possible. We didn't see it happening in the industry. So if someone knows about an incident like that, it would be super cool. Please let me know. But it will be like throwing a stone on someone's head, and then it will hit someone else's head, and you'll do it like intentionally, which will be very, very hard to do.
Yes. We saw on Anthropic last month almost, they introduced a bounty hunt. This is great. We always knew parents, for instance, are worried about what kids watch on YouTube or who might contact them. I know many friends with teenage children, they say no iPhone until you're X age because of all those protections. And I was thinking, now with all these AI agents, there is another layer. So I guess you keep talking about enterprise, but one of the best use cases is protecting children against harmful content, right? So do you have different training for this guardrail, for these segments, or one model you created can be instructed for instance, harmful ads versus protecting children?
So we have a lot of models, and we have models that are specifically focused on protecting kids online. Now the gap is not the AI. Actually, the gap is the policy and the training of the models with new emerging threats. So the real challenge in trust and safety specifically, and specifically for user-generated content, but I'm looking at AI-generated content and user-generated content in the same way, because the AI-generated content is created by a human being. They're just using a tool instead of using Photoshop or using a camera, but it doesn't really matter. The person that is uploading it or creating the script to automatically uploading it is still breathing and it's still creative. So it doesn't really matter. This is also a noise. People are saying, oh my God, the AI generated content is arriving. But no, it's the humans that are behind it that keeps reinventing new emerging twisted ideas to either profit or to just troll the world. Now, there's two things that needs to be done. The companies that are running those marketplaces, those social networks, needs to decide they want to do everything they possibly can in order to protect children and people in general, but children in particularly. From the companies that we work with, I'm very happy that this is the case. But the hard part is, how do you keep up with every idea that someone had in every corner of the world, in every different language, in every different format? You need a lot of researchers to do something like that. And the issue is that the long tail is harmful. Like, unlike online advertising, that you can make a lot of money from one piece of creative, and then everything else is long tail, and nobody really cares about the long tail, because like, you made a conversion, you didn't make a conversion, it doesn't really matter. You're focusing on the 80-20. When you're thinking about harmful content that can be very disturbing for kids or very dangerous for kids, that long tail is someone's child. And it's very not scalable to find those issues if you were just focusing on making sure that our models that are trained on yesterday's incidents would find those issues. So by design, creating tools that are created on things that we already know is not a good solution for the problem. You're sacrificing the long tail by definition. And this is kind of like what we're also trying to solve here. How can we make sure that we constantly on the front edge, where we have the most recent and up-to-date information about harmful activities online, and we can train our models to find them, so we don't let that, let's say, long-tail mentality sacrifice the integrity of children and consumers online.
And being proactive about it. I have one more question about this model, and I move to another topic. The models you are building are multimodal too. You mentioned video and pictures, so it's not just about text. The models
Right.
can cover all those aspects, right? It makes it a lot more difficult and expensive to run, because the compute power needs to analyze image versus video versus text maybe is exponential, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, but obviously we understand the format in advance, so it's not. So we send to the models only things that needs to be sent to the model. So we're optimizing the cost. One of the most important things is make sure that you're providing safety, but in where you actually have ROI. It's like you'll think about it. Technically, every country is capable of providing 100% safety to their citizens. You just need to put a police officer in front of every street corner 24/7. But it's very expensive. So are you willing to pay 90% income tax in order to cover that? Probably not. So you have some sort of a balance. And we try to make sure that the cost is as low as possible and provides the highest safety standards as possible, and to make sure that you're constantly on the front end of let's call it understanding bad actors with our technology.
Let's change gear a bit. We know about the tension of AI regulation. And on one hand, we need enough freedom to innovate and move forward. On the other hand, is all risks that comes with irregulated or totally open space to build AI. So in the United States, we are going toward a more open, relaxed regulations, let people innovate and see if something went wrong, we go back and fix it. In Europe, the other way around. Everything is highly regulated unless it's allowed. As a person who is building in charge of addressing AI safety and security of different aspects of it. Where do you see this balance is happening, and what is your take on it? Do we really need higher regulation? Do you think the current approach is good and optimized? What is your take on that?
So the question is what do you mean by AI regulation? What is to regulate? It's it's like safety. So do you want to regulate the usage of ChatGPT in banking? Do you want to regulate the speed of adoption of AI in providing mortgage decisions? Do you want to limit the usage of AI in weapons? Like this topic of AI regulation is becoming very political, but it's almost meaningless. It's if you also look at history, there's no AI is a term to describe some sort of technology. You can't regulate technology, even if you try. It needs that every country worldwide would decide to respect this regulation. Let's go like all the way to the development of nuclear weapons. It was discovered, and then there was a race, and then when everybody had it, there was some sort of a decision of the strongest countries worldwide to control it. Is it helping to make the world safer? Maybe a bit, but we didn't arrive to that point until everybody already had enough weapons to destroy the entire world 5 times. And again, like this is also, there's a new technology here that unlocking it to the full potential is providing incredible powers to the country that controls it. And it's not a zero-sum game. Everybody can use it to many different ways. So there's no point in even trying to regulate that. And this is what the US are saying. Like someone is going to do it, so we're going to go as fast as possible, don't slow us down. When, you talk about AI regulation, again, you talk about many different things. There was the executive order that was canceled by Trump. It created a lot of limitations that I think that 99% of them were positive on the way AI needs to be adopted in the US. It needs to be tested against harmful creation of content, including child abuse. It needs to be tested against hacking. It needs to be tested around a lot of things. And the people that said, no, this is slowing us down, are basically saying, we don't want to waste time testing. Let us cook, let us build, let us advance. You can disagree or agree with that, but eventually this is a very realistic way of how technology is being created. I think that in terms of regulation, when you're letting consumers interact with AI, and when you're changing the way things been done before, and when you're effectively changing the rules by implementing a new technology, you must test it and make sure that you can at least predict consequences that are like in 1 degree between you and the consumer. I don't think it's possible to regulate AI in a universal way or even in a nation wide way, but I do think that when you're thinking about implementing AI in places there was no AI before, and it can meaningfully affect a person, this needs to be regulated. But again, there's a lot of subtleties here. There's also a lot of fear in the industry from European regulation, just think about GDPR, that changed a lot the way online advertising works and the cost even of online companies. In practice, I don't know how much effective it was. It created like a tax on operating within the EU, but it's not that all of a sudden it's impossible to collect personal data about a person. Like
And
the
we all
comp-
just agree with whatever cookies and we move on. No one goes and reads, right?
yeah, so you solved one thing and then you created a new problem. It's like I don't think the GDPR solved the issue of privacy. Yes, companies, thank God, cannot sell your personal information to everybody who wants, but you can target now people with AI. It's very easy to find a very micro segment and follow them around. So there's when we have a discussion about things like safety, security, regulation, we need to really double click and understand what are we talking about, what exactly are we trying to solve, how do we measure that, who has this problem, who's trying to avoid having this problem, and only then the discussion can continue, because sometimes there's so much noise and there's so much contradicting opinions, and they're not even talking about the same thing.
We see that, for instance, companies like Apple, they don't, as you mentioned, now is not as restricted. Anyone can start theoretically introducing AI, and they decided to hold on to it a bit. An interview came out a couple of weeks ago, and they said we want to take our time to look into all aspects of it. I guess Apple can do it because none of us gonna leave our iPhones because they don't have an AI on it, right? We try to find somewhere else until they introduce it. But do you think this might lead to more self-regulation or not? I want to compare this with social media. We didn't have any regulation for social media neither, and there is a lot of now studies that how it was really harmful to mental health of children, younger. Everyone felt I need to have a glory moment every day, otherwise I'm a loser, and it created a lot of problem. And some people argue if you don't do anything about it, it doesn't mean companies or industry will take care of it on their own. What do you think about AI? Can everyone afford, like Apple, to hold on to it until they do it right for the sake of their own business, not just because of ethical reasons, just to make sure their product is good enough? It doesn't create harm that harms themselves. Do you see this self-regulation become a movement? Companies start doing it, and then they can use technologies like ActiveFence, right? I want to build it. I want to do it safe. I don't have the resources. I go and ask those who know. Do you think this will happen in future or no?
I think it's happening. I think that everything that we see now is self-regulation. The reason that you didn't, 99% chance that, again, like today, March 17th, 2025, 99% of the people who are listening to this podcast did not use something that is based on AI with their bank, with their health insurance, with their mobile carrier, with anybody that is not a startup company, or a very high, like it's some sort of a company with a lot of IT. The reason is that those companies are still afraid. They're afraid from security related topics, from safety related topics, from privacy, and from accuracy. They're afraid to make a mistake, which is a bit funny, because if you think about the last time you've called an airline agent or texted one, you had probably, like, in 1 out of like 3-4 times, a very bad experience, and you came out very frustrated and upset, and you thought this person was so rude to me. But when you're implementing Gen AI, the developer expects a way higher SLA in terms of quality. The reasons, but that's the reality right now. So I don't think that Apple is unique. Apple is, under the flashlight because you have an iPhone. But why United didn't implement the AI in their model? Why, whatever, HSBC in the UK for their consumers didn't implement that? Concerned about all of those issues. So again, markets are efficient. When in most cases, when the companies don't think the technology is there yet, they won't implement that. They don't need some regulator to tell them don't implement it. But also, the regulator would care not about the brand protection. They'll care that all of a sudden a company isn't providing loans to people based on their last name or based on their zip code. How to measure that? Effectively. Again, those are, unless you're intervening in the market dynamics, you don't really have a way to stop it. So today you have regulations. Today you have a way to make sure that you create a fair and some sort of an equity in the way resources are being distributed. But again, I think this discussion is very superficial about how to create regulation. It's super early. We have more academics talking about what could happen and what will happen than actually traction in the industry itself. And it's also materializing in how, like, when VCs are talking, okay, where is the value beyond Nvidia, beyond the startups that making like a few millions of dollars here and there. Where is the actual value that Gen AI is going to provide to the world? And it will happen. I believe it.
Yeah. Prashant, my previous guest mentioned in Spain, there are more people employed by government to regulate AI than people who actually work on it. We definitely don't want to go there. But let me ask you this. You mentioned about companies. That was one of the questions I wanted to ask you. When is the right time as an executive, as a decision maker in a company to look into safety of AI when I use it? Let's say I want to come to you and you provide this service, should we think about it as we put the concept together before anything, or we can build our use case, we can do a prototype, MVP, whatever we call it, proof of concept, and then come to you? What do you recommend to executives, decision makers when start looking into these aspects?
When you just start thinking about the design of an agent, of an app, you need to think about the experience, right? You want to create an experience with a specific cost in order to create a specific gain. So it doesn't really matter. You want to have a person that is receiving online claims for a healthcare related issue. So you want to replace your chatbot or the physical representative with a model. You want to define how the person can communicate with this new model. There's an experience that you're designing. That experience has character. You need to make sure that it speaks in the right way, that it doesn't speak in a way that you don't want it to speak, that it cannot be hacked, that the whole tone of voice, everything is the experience. The safety and security and privacy, what's in, what's out, is an essential part of the design. So even before you even start thinking about implementation, you need to think about how do you want the experience to be like. And this is where you start thinking about the actual safety and security. Then there's tons of technical issues, like what kind of model do you want to choose? Are you choosing something? Are you building something on your own? Are you building on top of someone else, like on Amazon or Microsoft or Google? Do you want to take something off Hugging Face? What are the issues that each and every model have? Like, how do you know it? Then you implement something. You need to test it and evaluate it. You also need think about safety. Then you deploy it, and you have the whole inference, the real-time issue. You also need to have some sort of a safety guardrail, some call it AI firewall. In each and every part of that journey, you need to think about safety and security and privacy. But the long story short, it's from the beginning, from day one.
And what, in terms of budgeting for it, let's say very practical case, a mid-sized company wants to use your service or similar ones. Do we need to allocate 10% of the budget for whatever we make? Or is there any benchmark how, from financial and planning point of view, people should think about cost of adding this additional aspect to the product?
It's a good question. I don't think there's a budget yet. I think like a good kind of like figure would be 1 to 3% of the total cost of the budget. But again, because companies are all over the place in terms of budget, some companies are going to system integrators and they're building everything for them. So they calculate the cost in a very different way because you have like a big cost in day one and then maintenance is very cheap. In some cases, companies can save a lot of money on the inference if they did a very good job on evaluation. So there's really not golden standard right now. From what we're seeing that people spend a lot of time in evaluation, and because most companies didn't deploy, so it's hard to know what will be in production. But in terms of cost, as kind of like we make sure that the cost is a fraction of the actual cost in runtime. And I believe that this is the only way that you can actually provide a sustainable safety and security solution for enterprises.
Do you think at some point we can have like an SSL for AI security, as anyone can go register, get a certification? Do you see that might come at some point, or still is too complex to have SSL of the AI security?
I think this is more relevant for deep fakes and things like that, where you actually, there's a lot of fear mongering today around what can be produced with AI and how that can create fraud. I think this is a problem that will effectively be solved with a protocol and not with a specific tech that would scan each and every image. It's the same way that you're going online and you're seeing if this website is good to take your credit card details. It's like if we had to check each and every one, we'd have to download like an antivirus or use some sort of technology to know that we can actually pay safely here. It would be a very different market. So I think that actually this problem will be solved pretty fast. I just don't think it's a problem yet.
Interesting. But a lot of people try to detect AI generated text for universities. What I heard last is they have not been very successful because LLMs are getting better and better. Unless you intentionally add a watermark that others know to look for it, do you think it requires some collaboration
No,
or still can be done?
I don't think it's a problem. It's like it's a problem with the educational system. It's not a problem with the technology. It's why is it a problem? The fact, if for years the method was asking students to create a long text and this would count as them showing that they can pass some sort of benchmark. So what's the problem? They can still copy it from someone. They just need to invest a lot of time. So the barrier to cheat is high. But now the barrier of cheat is low. So all of a sudden it's oh my God, we need to solve this problem. Like the problem is in the system that measures students based on something that is completely nonsense. So again, I think this is what they call a nothing burger. Nobody cares. It's a problem of some old people, and that's it. Like, and I consider myself within that group. It's kind of like I used to work in a different way, and all of a sudden it's not relevant. It's like real time coding tests in interviews of developers. Well, we need to change the system.
Yeah, no, even deepfake, I would like to know, even when I chat with the customer support, is it an AI or not? Or if someone talks or I see someone, is it real? So even addressing it for deepfake automatically can bring a lot of relief to a lot of people. That's a great point.
Maybe, but again, it's not a problem. It's like you really want to know where the agent that you're speaking with is calling from. So you want, but it doesn't mean that you get what you want because it doesn't matter. It's like you want to get from point A to point B. You want to get a refund. You want to understand when your thing is going to arrive. You want to open a bank account. Why does it matter if you're speaking with a human or not?
Unless they get into the loop, become frustrated. If they perform well, then you're right, it doesn't matter. What would you like to add? Any recommendation for industry? Those who want to get into the AI, that's a part of everyone is talking about losing jobs. It seems this is a very big space, a lot of room for people come into it and become an expert and work in it. Anything you would like to add to our conversation or recommendation for those who listen to this?
I think that right now there's a massive opportunity for folks to master AI tools and create a very interesting mode for themselves and for their careers. So you don't need a lot of time. Like if you take like a month and you'll explore how can you become a coder without knowing how to code, and how you can become like a marketeer, and how you can become everything with the use of what's in the market right now, and that's like about tools, and spend, I don't know, like a few days learning how the technology works. It's a bit technical, but it's there's so many things out there. It was never easier to get into to ride a new trend, to ride a new wave. So, for example, a few years ago, when folks asked me about how to get into the cybersecurity community, I told them you take a few months, learn how to code, learn how to do like a few courses. You really need to invest yourself into it. Today, you don't need to do that much.
With all this vibe coding and tools coming to the market.
Yeah, you need to understand what's possible, because the tools that are in your fingertips are very different. They're magical, and many people have a very hard time to adjust. Like I see, even in our company, we're working very hard to make sure that people understand that the way they did things are no longer relevant. They need to unlearn a lot of things and learn new things, or they get swamped by this new wave.
And I guess this is a great opportunity for upskilling, not just re-skilling, to take advance.
Exactly.
Thank you very much, Noam. This was a very interesting conversation. I know we can continue forever. Your time is limited. I had the pleasure of speaking with Noam Schwartz, co-founder and CEO of ActiveFence. We discussed about the state of AI safety and security, especially when it comes to content generation. We discussed a bit of regulations, what does it mean and how it might be applied. And